get all the parts you need. You're going to get this kit or this piece fully built. And I'm going to show you something real quick. If you loosen up this hex screw right here, for assembly purposes, this is easier to do this way, but it comes together when we ship it. Okay, you're going to need these tools. You're going to need a 3/16 Allen wrench or a T-handle Allen wrench. You're going to need a 5/32 Allen wrench. You're going to need a 3/32 Allen wrench and a number 10 Torx driver. And then as far as red Loctite, there are a few numbers. You can get the Loctite 262 or the 2760 Loctite, or this is Harbor Freight. They call it number 71 thread lock. These are all semi-permanent Loctites that would need heat by a heat gun, an electric heat gun, or a light torch to remove the locked thread from the part. So what we can do to start to build this one is, I have this block that I've got padded because the bipod doesn't set well on the bench. It works real well on a block. So your T10 Torx driver, what you want to do is you want to go around and release all of these 8 screws. And I'm just going to show you a couple and then we'll cut. And I'll do the monotonous work. Okay, so I've gotten these 8 screws loose, and the next thing I can do is loosen this mariner's wheel. It's going to require the 3/16 hex or Allen wrench, T-handle wrench. What I do is I grab a hold of the bipod and I keep the mariner's wheel from turning with my thumb, and underneath there's a screw. You just break that screw loose. We'll set that aside and save that. We aren't going to use that anymore here, and we aren't going to use the mariner's wheel anymore. I'll turn this up and show you. What's underneath this mariner's wheel is you've got these 3 Belleville washers. You don't want to lose them. What they are is there's a flat one and a beveled one and another flat one. And sometimes it's easier just to tap it loose. Or pull the screws that I've already loosened. And the reason I was getting that Belleville washer off of there is when we pop this plate off, like that, there's our bevel washer. So with the plate removed, the top plate removed, you'll see there's a washer right here. This happens quite a bit. So that washer is also beveled. You put the bevel down, and this is your kit right here. So we've got the 3 bevel washers there, the top plate, and now we're ready to get into the kit that we send you. What I'm looking for is this piece of Delrin right here. So this piece of Delrin will go, and I'm going to tell you here before I do this, you don't want to get these gears out of sync with each other. So you want to pop this out, put the Delrin in there, and put that back in without moving anything. It's very important because if you get them out of sync, one leg will be higher or lower than the other. Okay, so that's taken care of. That's that's needed. It keeps your worm gear from moving up and down when you make adjustments later here. Okay, so the next step then is to put this top plate back on. If you've used your bipod for a while, it's a good time to add a little grease in there, clean out if there's any dirt that had gotten in there. But this is a relatively new bipod. It's already been greased. So we're just going to put this top plate back on. It takes a little bit of manipulation because you've got those 4 axles there, or 4 shafts. And basically it's on, and I'm just going to run a couple of screws in just to keep it from going anywhere. Now, we've given you 2 longer screws. They're going to go here. You're going to use the other 6 screws that you took out, and you're going to set 2 screws aside should you ever want to reverse the order here. So I'm going to set those screws aside with the screw from the mariner's wheel. Now, it's important here, you turn these in reverse and you'll hear a click. And that's when the threads are going to catch. These small screws with these fine threads going into aluminum are easy to strip. So I'm just going to warn you here, there's the click and then you run it in. And I'll get these, just like I was doing a tire, I'm going to do a cross pattern because I want this to tighten up nice and square. There's that click. It's a good idea to do that with any small screw in anything, not just in this plate, but it's easy to keep from stripping screws if you run them in reverse until you feel that step of that thread. Okay, so now basically your bipod is back together. Okay, we've just put this face plate back on, and this hex threaded shaft comes with the kit. You need to load those threads up with Loctite. There's Loctite 262, Loctite 2760, or this, for instance, is Harbor Freight Thread Lock number 71. These are Loctites that need heat to remove them. They're a medium to heavy duty Loctite, so they're going to hold fast for the duration once you apply them. In order to remove them, you would have to pull this worm gear out, put it in a vise, and heat it with propane, or an electric heat gun is the best way. This is a 1/4 inch drive screwdriver, and this is the best way to put this in. And again, for demonstration purposes, I'm not putting the Loctite on there, but you will absolutely need the Loctite on these threads when you put this together. Once you get it together, snug it up nice and tight, and the next step is to grab the gear drive. These 3 holes match with these 3 holes, and the trick here is to just get the hex shafts to match. Now that's what I did right there. I just turned it and I pressed it on. Now it's in a position where this screw that came in the kit will need the 5/32 Allen wrench, and it goes right into the center, and that's why I had the handle off. It's easier to do this with the handle loose. Now, these 3 screws are alignment screws. They'll go clear through, but they stop at the case. We've had to drill or tap no holes. That screw is keeping this bracket captured on the housing. The next thing is the 2 longer screws that we've supplied that are going to replace the 2 shorter screws that came out. They'll go in here, and again, run it in reverse till you hear the click. And you're actually going to bottom these screws out inside the housing, and all they are is added alignment. That one's bottomed out. And that one's bottomed out. Okay, now those 3 screws keep this from moving anywhere. So the next step is to put your handle back on and tighten it up. So now you've got a bipod that is usable after you let it set overnight.